I would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to Tuesday, folks, July 19th, 2016. Hope y'all are doing well this week. I got a few interesting responses to yesterday's show about the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage going away, and wondering whether I honestly thought that it was a possibility it was going to go away. Well, yeah, that's why I did the show on it yesterday. Remember? So yeah, I honestly think that's a real possibility. So yesterday it wasn't. I didn't name the show "Bye Bye 30-year fixed-rate mortgage" just to get clicks. It was. I seriously think that's a real possibility. So if you didn't listen to yesterday's show, that's what it was about. The idea that the 30-year mortgage that's a fixed-rate mortgage in the United States could go away. So if you want to listen to that, you can check it out. You can find it at the website, www.soldbyrobert.com. And in addition to that, you can find all other kinds of wonderful things at the site. You can find a link labeled Contact the Rebel Broker, and it's not deceptively labeled. It does actually let you contact me. And using that, you can send me any ideas, suggestions, observations, or questions you might have. I'd be happy to field them for you. Also, at the very tippy top of the page is a button that says Take a Survey to Help the Show. That's a demographic survey to help folks know what the general makeup is of folks who listen to the show. It would be a very big help if you could take a minute out of your day to go and click that and answer the questions presented. I think there's only 6 or 7 questions, something in that neighborhood. So it should only take you a second, and you'd be doing the show a great favor. And, of course, finally, I want to remind everyone to participate in the poll. We have a poll right now running that is asking the question, would you like me to do one show a week that is off topic, that is not about real estate? I've had a few people ask for this enough that I finally decided I'd just ask the audience in general and see how everyone feels about it. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, to be honest with you. This is a real estate show, so when folks click the real estate show button, they expect to hear a show on real estate. So if they happen to stumble in on an off-topic day, I guess we just have to name it in some way that makes it real clear it's not about real estate. But anyway, I'd love to hear your opinions. What do you think about that idea? I was faced with a very crucial decision today on what I was going to do with today's show, and I ended up queuing up a few different articles. Frankly, one of them is a little bit cutesy. A couple others are a little bit more serious. I'm leaning more towards doing the cutesy thing today. I'm in a cutesy mood. It's already been a tough week with a variety of different things going on. But this is one about some of the strangest real estate add-ons. And it just struck me as funny. A couple of these I've seen similar things in the past, and I've shared on previous shows. But I just thought that this might be kind of interesting to check out. So let's jump in from Realtor.com and discuss the 5 weirdest things that people have tried to sell with their homes. And this I suppose there's a magical line in the sand when it comes to weird versus not weird. I've mentioned before on this show that one of the things a realtor should be doing is really being aware of what motivates both parties, right? We've talked about it before. The instance where one guy is an old car enthusiast who maybe doesn't have an old car to work on. Maybe the seller is a guy who always wanted to be that guy and bought himself an old 57 Chevy that's up on blocks somewhere. You find the connects, right? That's part of the negotiation process. One of the things that has always kind of amazed me about real estate agents is going into this entire process being blind. Now, I have discovered that one thing that I do that apparently not a lot of folks do is because I can't really, I can research a little bit about the sellers. There is so much online information available about people. And of course, because I'm a real estate person, I have access to various records, and I can get the names of the people who actually own the home. And I do that, and I'll check to see if they're up on Facebook, and I'll look for things that they like, that they're interested in, that they've expressed an interest in, maybe through their Twitter feed if they're doing that kind of stuff, right? But I'll also check into the background of the real estate agent. And I find it very educational to find out how many transactions they've done, how free, are they someone who seems to be, I want to try to figure out what kind of agent they are, how can I get them on my side or on the side of my clients to really, when they present this offer, because it's just the way the business works now is you just don't get to present things in person anymore. I actually kind of miss that. When I first got into the business, it was far more common. I mean, more than 60% of the time, you would present your offer in person. I can remember a time when there were multiple offers, you would all go to the real estate office and you'd all sit in the waiting room. It'd be me and 8 other agents who all have an offer to present, and we would physically present it to the actual sellers along with their agent in a meeting room. And they'd meet each of us in turn, and you'd go through this process. And it was great. I loved it. I thrived on that, and it was awesome because so many agents didn't thrive on that, and so it was a very stressful thing for them. And for me, I tend to be a very chatty, gregarious person, and ask a lot of questions. And back then, I would use that as an opportunity because obviously there wasn't the internet so much back then. So I would ask questions during that process, find out what they were interested, what motivated them, why are they moving, what are the things that if they are moving to something, what are the things that really draw them to where they're moving to? If there's things they really didn't like about where they are, what are the things they're leaving? I like to know those things simply because I want to try to make an interesting deal, right? That's the best way to represent the interests of my clients, to ask those questions, to find those places where they may be able to offer something absolutely unique. Because here's something else I have found. When you can go into, and this is, we're deep in the weeds now. I apologize. I promise we will get into the five of the weirdest, not all of the weirdest, because the list of weird, very long. We're just going to talk about 5 of high-ranking weirdness of things that people have tried to sell with their homes. But anyway, now I've derailed myself about talking about the weeds. So it's one of those things where in order to make a really good deal and do the right thing for your clients, finding those links, that places where they mesh, you can provide something absolutely unique, right? How much, let's say someone comes in and they're willing to offer full asking price for your property. Okay, great. Someone else comes in and is willing to offer maybe $5,000 or a small amount under full asking price, or maybe even we can just make it at full asking price. But this other person shares your passion for, and this is obvious because of your house, right? That's a topic we could have a discussion about. Is the tchotchkes in your house are all very much Marilyn Monroe. You've got all kinds of stuff. You've got little figurines, you've got paintings, you have action figures. Yes, I have met people who have that kind of stuff. I had a guy who was an Elvis guy. Wow. And I hate to admit it because it hurts me. My mother's a big Betty Boop person. So she's got a ton of little Betty Boop things around in her house. Which leads us to a completely other story that I'll save for another time. But in any event, you learn these things, and then you discover that my buyer has a signed Marilyn Monroe thing, a letter she wrote to somebody, right? And she's willing to part with it. Well, wow. Holy free holies. That's pretty awesome, right? So there you go. That's what I'm talking about. You find these unique things, but nobody makes the effort, really, today. No one really even tries. I have yet to meet another agent who has ever even come close to trying to make any kind of effort to discover those kinds of inroads. And I'll tell you, maybe it doesn't help the majority of the time, but when it does, which is probably, I don't know, I managed to find maybe one deal a year where something like that, or maybe one deal out of 20 or 15, right in that ballpark, where something like that plays into it, where either on an emotional level I'm able to make an appeal, like I discovered that someone was a Marine vet when they were younger and they're older now and they're trying to sell their property, and one of my buyers happens to be a Marine themselves. Well, if I know those two things, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to mention that. I know how Marines treat each other and how much they like each other for whatever reason. So yeah, there's that. And that emotional connection can make a big deal. So I guess we're not so much in the weeds. I mean, we're talking about something fluffy, but at least there you got something valuable, right? You want to push for a real estate agent who's going to do that kind of stuff for you, or you can push for it as well. I mean, you can be the person who really drives that if you feel like your agent's really good in every other way. But this is an article from Realtor.com. I will absolutely post a link to it. And I believe that there's even a link to more of these if you're really hot to read them. And maybe I'll share a story or two of things I've encountered which were odd. So number one on this particular list is a donkey. This is from a real estate agent in East Setauket, New York. Had some clients, and they were selling their property with an ass, whether you wanted it or not. As it happened, this particular piece of real estate was a horse farm. The sellers were moving across the country and couldn't take the donkey with them. Fortunately, the sellers got another farm to adopt the animal just before the property sold. Number two on the list, and let me just tell you that this one is way more common than you might think, unless you're someone who might get something out of this, and then you might think, oh yeah, it happens. This one is a full-fledged S&M room. This is from a broker in New York City. Let me tell you, I've seen it a couple of times in Silicon Valley, and I've heard stories from places like Los Angeles. I heard a story once from somebody. It was a Texas city. I can't remember which one. It was either Austin or Dallas. I can't remember which. And the Dallas one was epic because it was linked to a wife swapping, or not. That's not a fair term. To a swinging community. Anyway, you come across the weirdest stuff in real estate. Anyway. So this was a listing where one particular room had a mix of both business and pleasure, full-on S&M room, chains, whips, and dominatrix stuff, according to this agent. Even after the home went on the market, the client didn't want to convert the beyond 50 Shades of Grey room into something easier to sell. The seller said they used the room for photo shoots at $10,000 a pop. During showings or open houses, Muss would keep the room locked and say it was for storage. That didn't last long, though. I made him remove it after a month because it would scare people away, she says. The second one on this list is actually, the third one on this list is actually very similar. But I mean, these are real world stories, and you'd be surprised at the reaction, right? So when you get invited as a real estate agent to someone's home to do a property evaluation, you know, you can kind of tell from the body language and how people are looking at you, how they feel about what they're showing you. It's either pride, or it's, oh gosh, you know, I'm getting a chance to clean up, or, God, you know, I'm sorry to show you this garage is a mess, or here's the bedroom where we just kind of keep junk. You know, there's those. Now, I've had the whole S&M room thing before, and I've had the very creative S&M room. So anyway, but there was only one time when someone showed me their S&M room, and the look on their face told me they thought I was going to think this was the best thing I had ever seen. They did not have that sheepish look. This was, once the door was open and I was looking at what I was looking at, I almost felt like I was about to get an invitation to give it a try. And that's how excited they were about it, and that's how enthusiastic they were about it. And absolutely, they thought this was a huge value add that should be prominently displayed in the advertising, or at least prominently mentioned. And for a moment, I actually had to try to entertain the idea of marketing a house with this feature, and the idea then of me having to find, this was a little bit before the whole online thing really took off, but I can remember thinking, am I going to have to like start looking for websites that cater to this stuff and advertising on that, or are there magazines? That's how far the thought process went before I got them to commit to changing it to its previous setup. I don't think it was quite the profit source of this particular room in New York, where they were able to charge $10,000 a round for folks to go in there and get things done. But that's an interesting one from New York. The next one, number 3, is a dungeon in the master bedroom, and I've got an awesome turn on this one. So we'll discuss this story, and then I'll give you my twist on it. Sometimes you can hide the dungeon and sometimes you can't. In this instance, well, I won't use the person's name. A real estate agent in Oceanside, California was on a listing appointment at a house that was curiously overpriced. They went into the home. He found out why. The owner had an adult play area built into the master bedroom. Think dungeon. Now, let's see. The house was about $50,000 over market value because the owner was adamant that his kinky retreat added value. Quote, he refused to remove it and he refused to lower the asking price, Ferraro recalls. I just gave you his name. He said he has invested a lot of money into it and he was sure a buyer would enjoy it. And the house sat on the market, and after 6 months, the owner caved and refashioned the room into an office, and it finally sold at market value. And that brings up an interesting point that I think is vital for everyone to get from a story like this. Things you think are awesome and amazing, they very well may be to a very select set of the buying public. But you need to, no matter how much of an emotional tie you have to something that you've done to your house, or how much of your free time is spent enjoying something that you've done to your house, if it's an off-kilter thing, if it's an off-center thing, if it deviates from this very vanilla central location, I hate to put it that way, but you're limiting the number of folks who are going to be willing to buy that thing. So this is a perfect example of a guy who absolutely was convinced that it should be worth more because of it, when in reality it's worth less, which is an argument or a discussion that oftentimes an honest realtor, if they're really trying to be honest, are going to have with folks. And you know what? Right after this message, I will share with you my personal experience with the dungeon in the master bedroom. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner, broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about the top 5 weirdest, or 5 of the weirdest. Top 5 would be a hard one to imagine. The voting for that one, that would be a hard one to figure out. 5 of the weirdest things that people have tried to sell with their house. We just spent some time talking about a dungeon in the master bedroom, and I want to tell you my version of that story. Now, I've had a couple that were relatively minor, meaning it was more the toys, it was more the accoutrement, so to speak, that went along with it, that could then be put into a box and then put into the garage, and then no one would know the difference, right? It's amazing the things that you can hang from the back of a door to facilitate a room of those kinds of interests, and that we were able to get rid of that, no problem. However, this one was a technical triumph for the seller, and basically it leveraged off of all the technology available given the mid-2000s. This is probably 2000, let's see. God, it was after I came back from the UK. So, or no, you know what? It was just before. So it was 2004. And this couple had this thing really decked out. You'd walk, the whole house had super high ceilings, right? And each room, it was obvious, had the high ceilings. You had kind of the arched cathedral ceilings, kind of when you walked in, big living room, custom home. You go into the master bedroom, and it was this expansive sort of thing. And it had the lowest roof or ceiling of every other room. And it kind of had these seams. Well, you could push this button, and the ceiling would open. It looked like it kind of went up and then flopped over. I guess it kind of accordioned on itself. And this stuff would come down from the ceiling. All of the things that would go along with. I mean, it was like something out of a comedy that was making this topic part of the comedy. My mind immediately runs to a movie called Eurotrip, which I am ashamed to admit makes me laugh out loud every time I watch it. I apologize. It is both my it is also my shame. I hate to have to admit. But anyway, there's a scene in there where something like that happens, where a room converts magically, sort of Batman cave or Batcave style, into this dungeon, and it all just kind of comes out of the ceiling, and suddenly there's now a rack over on one side of the room that's got all the stuff on it that you'd want to use. It's got things that you can suspend yourself from coming down. Absolutely nuts. And the lead up to this was kind of funny. The guy was showing me the house. The wife wasn't there, and he says, I'm not really he got it. He seemed to get that this was not a mainstream feature, and he wasn't real sure what to do about it. And so he presented it as, okay, now I'm going to show you something. I don't want you to get freaked out or anything. Nothing weird's going to happen as a result of me doing this. I just want you to see it, and then you can give me suggestions on what to do about it. And so, and this was way up the peninsula. This was a peninsula house. This was closer to San Francisco, like San Mateo, Redwood City, up in that area. And he pushes this button, and all this stuff comes down, and I cannot stop laughing. And I hope he kind of blushed a little bit. It was all the reactions you would expect to see. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but the way I reacted, he got it. The way he reacted, I got it. So everything was fine. But I said, yeah, this is different. This is a little bit out there, but the bottom line is all the stuff that's coming down looks like it comes off. So you can leave this as a thing that drops down without all the stuff, or not. They have to push the button to make all this stuff happen. So that was actually not a listing that I was doing by myself. This was, I was doing this with 2 other agents, I think, because I don't usually go that far up the peninsula. At least I didn't, and I don't at that time. So I was involved with a little bit, sort of just going in and doing the evaluation part. But my understanding is that actually sold with all the stuff. The folks who ended up buying the house actually left it all as it was, and I hope they enjoyed it. I don't think they got any extra money. The folks who set that up spent tens of thousands of dollars to get that going. And to make, I'm sure it was even more than that, but it was that kind of house. It was a custom. It was a high-end house. These were folks who'd made a lot of money in technology, so the money wasn't as much of a deal for them. They were looking to move out of the state, and it was very interesting. And absolutely, if you met these folks, never would have guessed it. There wasn't a single external indicator that this was something that would be part of the menu, I guess you could say, for these folks. Okay, and I don't remember. Yeah, anyway, I can't remember what it sold for. It was a lot of money though. Number 4, a ski hill and a snow machine. The Hamptons have been a favorite destination for the wealthy since the late 1800s. And rich people love to ski, right? That was the logic behind one seller's attempt to offload a 40-foot-high man-made ski hill, complete with homemade snowmaking machines. And he tried to get the buyers to pay for it, according to the listing broker in New York City. It didn't work. It didn't entirely work. The buyers made the seller remove the snow machine from the property. They kept the hill, however, and are quite proud of the unique feature. A man-made snowy retreat wasn't all this seller tried to pawn off. Quote, after the closing, the buyers came to their new home to find the seller had left his 2 cats on the front porch with food and a note for them to keep them. I called the seller's ex-wife, who came to get the cats immediately. Number 5 on this list, and this is one I've never seen. And I consider myself a guy who's been around long enough to be able to say, I've seen it all, but I don't think you can. I think real estate's one of those businesses where no matter how long you do it, you could be in your 90th, 100th year doing it, and you're going to run into something that you've never seen before, because that's just the way this is. But this one's pets. I've had folks who had a problem who they were selling a home when they were moving. I mean, they had horse. I mean, this is a horse property place where I live, right? Morgan Hill, San Martin. So horses become an issue, but that's a different thing, right? You almost categorize those as livestock. Then there's been goats, and there have been sheep, and there have been chickens. So, I mean, there's been a lot of different animals in the mix. Typically, the when it comes to that kind of stuff, they don't tend to go with the property, but I've had them come with the property without it being a weird thing. But pet seems to cross kind of a funky line for me. I don't know if you think that, but a pet just seems like an odd thing to leave behind. Now, there was a broker at there was a realtor at a brokerage in Bedford, New York, sold her horse farm, but there was one thing in the contract that Slater didn't expect. The buyer wanted to keep the cat that was hanging around the barn and keeping it free of mice. They agreed and let the cat go with the house, but that's the first time I would have that it came from the buyer's side, where they said, well, we want your cat. I've never had a buyer say, I really like their dog. Can we have their dog? That just seems a little bit weird. And one more example from, from a gentleman who went to buy his first home. The seller had attached a note to the contract. It said, see if he wants the little black dog. The sellers, it turned out, were feeding a stray pup that had been hanging around the property for several months. And Phillips agreed and named the friendly canine Mikey the mortgage dog. Quote, he was an awesome dog. He would protect children and 2 cats from big people he didn't know. Never trained him. He was just wired that way. So there you go. Happy ending for the person who inherited a dog along with his house. And we really don't have time to do the more serious topics. So I guess this will just be a one-shot show tonight. We discussed the 5 weirdest things people have tried to sell with their homes. I hope it's been entertaining, if nothing else, and I hope we've learned a couple of things along the way. That different strokes for different folks is a beautiful thing, and sometimes it manifests itself in the accoutrement that you will find built into a home. So keep your eyes out for your next home that might include some interesting feature like a donkey or a cat or an S&M dungeon. Good luck with that. I do appreciate y'all making this show a part of your day. Why you made today's show a part of your day, I will never know, but we're at the end, so joke is on you. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'll talk to you all next time.